Got you.
In a battle of young quarterbacks on Monday Night Football, Caleb Williams delivers. And I think it's a signature win for him and Ben Johnson and the Bears. We'll discuss that here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hear nothing but facts because it is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, joined by Kevin Ostreicher as usual here on Tuesday. I think they probably do talk like that in Baltimore, where Kevin covers the Ravens, Locked On Ravens, and I'm always here, of course, the second of two Locked On NFL shows where we use the national representatives, the local representatives of each team to give you a perspective that you cannot get. We want to thank you for joining us and making us your everydayer, because it is your team every day. And shout out to the everydayers who actually join us each and every day here on Locked On NFL. I'll give you a bit of a roadmap here in just a second, but first I got to let you know that today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And thank you for listening to Locked On NFL. Again, a reminder that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. So go check that out. All right, here's a roadmap for what me and my man KO are going to discuss today. The Seahawks are looking good. They got Baltimore's defense, and the Jets and the Titans are going in a different direction of the Seahawks. We'll hit that in segment 3. Right smack in the middle, the Falcons look strong in a whole bunch of areas, even ones that they are not customarily strong in. We're going to start at the very top, talking about a signature win for Caleb Williams and the Bears. Big win. If you saw last year where Washington and Chicago played in Washington, Caleb's hometown, where he's playing against Jaden Daniels, the number one versus the number 2 pick, it ended crazy. Last night ended crazy too, but a different result for the Bears this time, KO.
Yeah, shout out to special teams. Seems like what is it? One man's trash is another man's treasure. And Jake Moody comes in there. 49ers cast them off. They did a little kicker swap, right? Pinero's now in San Francisco, and now you have Moody in Chicago, and Moody came through. But you're right. This was a really good win for the Bears. Really good win for Caleb Williams. I thought all around was really good for them. And we've talked about it for months now with that NFC North division about, the Packers and the Lions and the Vikings. And everyone's like, well, what about that Bears team? What's that Bears team going to do this year? And, I know that, they're 3-2. They've had some ups. They've had some downs. It's the first year with Ben Johnson. They're trying to figure things out. But, that Washington team has a lot of talent on it. And that's the team that made the NFC Championship game last year. So, that's a team that, you should feel impressed. You're able to go out there, get the job done. And I thought that they did a really good job of kind of staying true, staying the course, and getting contributions from unlikely heroes alongside their quarterback.
Absolutely. And my man Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears is euphoric. He's going to tell you about it right here.
The Chicago Bears win ugly, but by God, did they find a way to win. This game against the Washington Commanders felt like it was all about the Bears' self-inflicted wounds more than anything the Washington Commanders were doing to them, with dropped passes, penalties, a blocked field goal, missed passes from Caleb Williams. And yet, after the bye week, the offensive line looks much improved. The pass rush looks improved with some more blitzing from Dennis Allen. And DeAndre Swift comes through in a major way that Bears fans have been looking for not only all season, but really dating back to last season. And it feels like Ben Johnson has this team firing in a way where they don't get fazed by the mistakes that would really drag them down in the past. And to be able to go blow for blow with a team like the Commanders that are top 10 on offense and defense and still find a way to win tells you the direction this Bears team is headed. A 3-game winning streak with a light schedule still to come. And all of a sudden, this team's going to start making some noise this season.
Lauren's spot on with except one thing. If you think the Bears self-imploded, people in Washington will tell you, no, we blew this game because we had so many chances to do the right thing even right at the very end, just run the clock out, dude. You ain't got to do nothing else. And they fumbled in the rain. One, I don't know why they're in pistol on a short yardage situation. Teams got to stop that. But to add another little coat to this was the job that apparently Ben Johnson didn't want or turned down, or the plane turned around. And so for him to take a job a year later and actually go in and beat the team that had all of that success, and he was looking silly because he didn't take the right quarterback and he didn't want this guy, whatever, they won. Listen to David Harrison. We're going to hear his side of this from Locked On Commanders.
They say it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. Unfortunately for the Washington Commanders in Week 6, they started and finished the exact same way, giving away possessions to the Chicago Bears, and ultimately those turnovers and the points scored off of them give the Chicago Bears exactly what they need to pull off a last-second victory over the Washington Commanders. Second straight time that this matchup, Chicago Bears versus the Washington Commanders, has finished on a last-second score, and the second straight time that the losing team is going to walk out of the stadium saying that they should have won it and that they gave it away on an unlikely play. At the end of the day, the Washington Commanders dropped to 3-3 with back-to-back road games coming up, so the road does not get any easier after giving this one away. Jaden Daniels, 2 turnovers on the day, 3 total for the Washington Commanders. For more on all of this and everything coming up for the Washington Commanders, make sure you check out the Locked On Commanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, perspective is something. Both guys feel like one guy feel like he gave it away. The other guy feels like, well, we almost gave it away. Good game. Good game between two teams. Both teams, I came away from the game thinking this. The league is in good hands with 2 young quarterbacks because both of those kids can play.
Absolutely. And isn't that the beauty of this network? You get all these different perspectives from every team. And, it's funny because, one team feels one way, another team feels another way, but only one team comes out victorious unless there's a tie. And I do not like ties, by the way. But I do think that for me, these 2 teams are linked in more ways than one. Obviously the top 2 quarterback thing from last year, the way the game ended last season. And, David even mentioning there how the past 2 games have come down to like these wild, last team to score wins, crazy walk-off winners and whatnot. So, I think the Commanders will be okay. It's a tough loss and, missed opportunities. And I always rank it as there are 3 tiers of losses for teams. First tier, it's bad, is divisional losses. Mm-hmm. Second tier, conference losses. Third tier is out of conference losses. This falls in that second tier. And I think the NFC, it might come back because if Philly wins that division and then, the Bears might be fighting for a wild card spot potentially, we'll see. This game could come back in December and say, hey, you remember when the Bears beat the Commanders on a last-second field goal? Well, now, hey, either the Bears or the 7th seed and the Commanders are out of it, or maybe they're fighting for 5-6 or something. So something to monitor because games like this always have a funny way of coming back later in the year.
It's also something to monitor that these 2 quarterbacks are going to be joined at the hip. And that Jaden Daniels is actually playing in Caleb Williams' hometown. There's just so many ways. And then he got off to a faster start. It's almost like if RG3 had stayed healthy and Andrew Luck had stayed healthy, and then those guys just did battle for like 15 years. So I'm looking forward to that. I could actually watch these 2 teams play against each other all day because I love that competitiveness and the chippiness and the competition that comes along. The things that are attached to all of those things that tie them together, even with the coach not taking that job and waiting to get that other job, it's really, really wild, man. What's wild too is the Buffalo Bills just 2 weeks ago were thought to be the darlings of the NFL. Well, they got pushed around for the 2nd week in a row and not looking good right now for the Bills defense. But we'll talk about the team that beat them and talk about the Bills and listen to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built, B-I-L-T, comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, and your next lift ride and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. There's so many things to do in your neighborhood. All the restaurants, all the gyms that you use, everything that's within a small bike ride, walk, or a car drive can help you save some money when you use Built. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl to make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. And today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Reshapes. Hey, man, what do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla? Riding a T-Rex. Confidence, pure confidence. And if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Reshapes Go Long. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Reshapes Go Long. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, that's what you need. That's exactly where Reshapes Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, it's going to be right there, man, if you order. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first purchase. That's rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure you use the code so they know that we sent you. All right, man, we moving and grooving, moving right along with my main man, Kevin Ostreicher, talking about teams that win, teams that lose. It's Tuesday. We are not going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, at least not just yet. I am not going to disrespect my man KO like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we will get to something that's going to kind of.
We're going to have to eventually.
We got to, man, because we're just so shocked that they're losing because they're never in this situation. Also shocked that the Atlanta Falcons have regrouped. They got a pass rush. They're active in their front seven. They get after it, and they can score on offense. And finally, somebody realizes that when you take Bijan Robinson at number 7, you got to use Bijan Robinson like you took him at number 7. The Falcons get that. They got a good quarterback and a lot of young parts to that team, and they've been really, really impressive. Here's Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons.
It was an absolute stunner for the Atlanta Falcons, pulling off the huge upset win over the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, 24-14. This Falcon team going up 21-7 in the first half. It was one of the best first halves of football I've seen the Falcons play, probably since, their Super Bowl run type season back in 2016. Now, things did get a little hairy in the second half, and as the Falcons want to do, it looked like they were doing a little falconing to let the Bills back in the game, but they were able to seal the win in the closing minutes, and you saw Bijan Robinson have a dominant night and prove himself to be one of the top playmakers in the NFL. Drake London had a dominant night. Michael Penix sort of put himself on the map on a national spotlight, and this Falcons defense took down one of the best offenses in the NFL and kept Josh Allen in check and proved themselves that, hey, their success in the first month of the season wasn't a fluke. This defense.
Hey, man, the Falcons were winning. Somebody hit me up and say, Magic City ain't going to have no more chicken wings left tonight, man. Whenever the Falcons win, everybody gets all hungry for some reason, and that's where they go eat. But they look good, bro. They look real good right now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if everything clicks for this team, they're one of the most fun teams to watch in the entire NFL, especially offensively. You mentioned Bijan, and then you also have Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and obviously I think Michael Penix is really fun when he gets it going. So, not even talking about the defense. I mean, yeah, right now they're the number 2 passing defense in the NFL. It's been an amazing turnaround for them. And, you mentioned it, like the pass rush is there, and the turnaround has been incredible. And in that division where obviously Tampa is the team to beat, clearly, Atlanta's still making some noise here. And so I wonder, if there's something to say if Atlanta can keep kind of doing what they did against Buffalo, they probably won't lose a lot more games in the NFC South. Which again, Tampa at this point, like that's the team. They're 5-1 compared to Falcons at 3-2. Maybe it's a more of a photo finish of people thinking that division. So we'll see.
Tampa also has the number 1 schedule. Tampa has to go to a mad, angry Detroit team next week. By the way, that's going to be a hell of a game. But still, and they're banged up. So there's a little blue sky, and the rest of the conference isn't necessarily. As a matter of fact, nobody's running away from anything in the NFL right now, and everybody seems to have a chance. And I say that because I'm going to say this. The New England Patriots are right now atop the AFC East. That is because the Buffalo Bills have come tumbling back to reality because they have no defense. Here's my man Joe Marino to discuss what happened to them last night in the Big A.
The Buffalo Bills fall to the Atlanta Falcons 24-14 on Monday Night Football and enter the bye on a 2-game losing streak. This Bills team, there are a lot of questions about it. A team that many believe could be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. Well, the Bills do not look like that type of team right now. They have so much to prove. Questions about the defense and the coverage and the tackling and the coaching. Offensively, the passing game looks completely unsettled. The run game has not been as consistent as it needs to be over the last couple of weeks. What is this team's formula? When they play their best football, what does it look like? Can they play their best football? This team has some soul searching to do during their bye.
I know you ain't feeling sorry for Buffalo at all, because you could probably sit there and say that they are the little witchcraft curse that was put on Baltimore and all of y'all struggles. But they got some major problems. I told you earlier, I saw a little meme where a little baby took a gold chain off one of his friend's neck, and they said that's the NFL taking that MVP back from Josh Allen. What's wrong with Buffalo, man?
Yeah, it's the defense and the supporting cast. You know, Josh Allen right now alongside James Cook feels like those two guys are trying to carry this Bills team. And, you know, the O-line isn't bad either. The Bills have a good O-line, but, you know, wide receiver wise, you know, Keon Coleman hasn't developed the way that I feel like they've wanted him to through his first year and some change. Khalil Shakir is amazing. But then after that, you know, they signed Josh Palmer, and hopefully he's okay. That was a scary injury he had on that tackle, but you know, he's not a difference maker when he's out there. The Bills took a risk when they traded away Stephon Diggs and, you know, kind of went with this committee by approach thing. And, you know, I get it. I understand why they did it, but you know, even though Dalton Kincaid has been really good for them this year and he was out in this game, it just feels like, you know, Josh Allen has to do a lot for this Bills team. And defensively, you know, the run defense is not there. The pass defense is not there. And they invested a lot of draft picks in that defense. They signed guys like Joey Bosa and Larry Ogunjobi and other guys as well. But, you know, their stars seem to have regressed. Guys like Bernard and you know, Milano is in and out of lineups, and that's hurt them. So, I mean, I don't know if you can win with a defense like that, regardless of how good Josh Allen is. And Josh Allen is really, really, really good. But again, not everybody can do it by themselves. In fact, nobody can do it by themselves. So it's tough. It's a tough spot they're in right now.
Yeah, sometimes winning can be fool's gold. How many points did Baltimore score against them early this year?
40.
Yeah, so they won the game and everybody was all happy, but nobody sounded the alarm that they gave up 40 points, and now they can't seemingly stop anybody. And the only thing they're stopping is their what looked like an easy ride to the AFC Championship game being played at home. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Well, we're going to get into some bad teams now. We'll mention the good team at the top, though. That's the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to ask Kevin if the reason why Baltimore is struggling is because a lot of their staff is in Seattle, because their defense looks pretty good. So ponder that, Kevin. We'll get to it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Look, man, I know we're 6 games in. It ain't too late. The season is right here. You're coming out of the first third into the second third. And guess what that means? You still have an offer from FanDuel that you need to take advantage of. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. I'll say it again. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The good thing about FanDuel is they don't just let you go in there blind. They give you information, up-to-date information on roster moves, everything that's going on, injury reports, tendencies, all of that stuff. So you can be informed when you put that $5 down to get those $300. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. $5, your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets across the app. FanDuel. All right, Kevin, watching the Seattle Seahawks close up this weekend, they sacked the Jaguars quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, 7 times. He had only been sacked 6 times coming into the game all season long. They were able to stuff the run, and the Jaguars were a team that was second in the league in rushing. Then I thought about it. They look like Baltimore. There's a reason for that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Mike McDonald has come in there and done wonders for that team. Like they have talented defensive personnel, obviously, but the way that Mike McDonald did things when he was in Baltimore, he had to learn quickly. He had never called plays at the NFL level before. Back when he started with the Ravens as the defensive coordinator, he was at Baltimore for a long time, but he had gone up to Michigan for a year. He helped out Jim Harbaugh turn around that defense when Jim Harbaugh was still there, came back to Baltimore. And after a couple weeks of, hey, welcome to the NFL, Mike McDonald flipped that switch and got himself a head coaching job. Many people in Baltimore wanted him to be the successor to John Harbaugh after they lost in the AFC Championship game. But the Seahawks came along and said, hey, no, we'll take that. Thank you very much. And, I think with McDonald and the way that they're playing, you see the confidence. You see, especially with not only the defense, but the entire team, it's rubbing off. His post-game speech went viral, and how he was hyping up the guys after the game. And look, they had a really tough one against Tampa last week where it was a hard-fought game. The defense couldn't stop anything. And, they come back and have a performance like that against a Jacksonville team that Wig has been good this season. And so I think that Seattle right now, and, the Ravens have a long history of losing coaches to other teams, and they'll go elsewhere. And the success rate is like, it's sometimes all right, sometimes not so great. But, Mike McDonald looks like he's going to be in this league for a long time as a head coach, and looks like it will probably be in Seattle.
Yep, I was wrong about him, just like I was wrong about the Denver Broncos last year. And I will admit that I thought that they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But that leaves us to 2 other teams that I am not wrong about, that are 2 of the worst teams in the league. You're about to hear from one of them right now. It's the dude that hosts Locked On NFL in the morning, Tyler Rowland. The Titans, they fired their coach. Listen to this.
Brian Callahan is gone. All it took was a little tic-tac-Tyler reverse jinx this morning to get the ball moving. But here we are. Finally, Brian Callahan has been fired by the Tennessee Titans. And my God, the team desperately needed this. I just came off watching the film from the loss against the Raiders, and it's so clear that this team was directionless. They had no idea what they were doing, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Callahan failed consistently as an in-game management head coach. His offense was despicable. The Tennessee Titans scored the least amount of points through 6 games of any team since 1985. And the head coach was an offensive guy. Absolutely needed to happen. Now, again, I think there are a couple of paths the Titans can go here. They could either make Bones Fossil the special teams coordinator, be the interim head coach. They could go with a former NFL head coach who's on staff, like Mike McCoy as well. I think all of those options make sense. I would prefer John.
That's exactly what they did. They named Mike McCoy the interim coach. But we ain't gonna let Tyler off the hook, my little brother. I gotta tell him. He was right in front of the line to fire Mike Vrabel. Be careful what you ask for when you start asking for coaches to get fired, because you might end up with Brian Callahan.
Yeah, it's it was a rough year and some change for Tennessee, but I do think it was the right move, because keeping a guy there that the team clearly doesn't believe in, clearly doesn't want to play for, it can have long-term damage that extends beyond that coach. And so I think that them moving off of him was the right decision, because it kind of sets you up for this season to just say, hey, we're just going to do our thing and not really win a lot of games. And then you can reset after the season, but not have to deal with whether it was drama, all the, lifelessness that was in Tennessee. I mean, and it takes a lot, I think, to get fired before. I think people generally like at least a 2-year rule, sometimes 3, and to get fired just a year and a half. And we've seen that across the league more recently, where there's a lot shorter of a runway for a lot of these coaches. And if it's not working, they, that gets done. You're pulled. So, Tennessee right now, we knew they weren't going to be competitive this season. We knew that, they needed probably a couple more years and a couple good off seasons to really get this team back on track. But, Callahan, they looked at what he did with Joe Burrow in that offense and said, hey, come on down to Tennessee. And Tennessee doesn't have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So it was a little different over there.
Yeah, I think, too, it's like when people say, why fire him now? Even though he's not the guy for the future, why don't you just let him ride it out? Because he could actually take us deeper and deeper into a hole. We think he's actually teaching us bad stuff to do. And you got guys sitting there talking about they ain't working hard, practice was sloppy. You need to get those bad habits out of the building as soon as possible. I don't want the Jets to do the same thing to Aaron Glenn. I really think he walked into quicksand when he took that job, and I think they need to let him stay a little while longer. But my man John Butchko from Locked On Jets might think different. To listen to this.
I'm here from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, where the Jets just lost to the Broncos. When you're the worst team in the NFL, you find a new way to lose every week. The Jets' defense, which has been an issue all season long, came to play. They allowed only 13 points. They forced their first turnover of the season on the first Denver drive, and they allowed only a field goal in the second half, but it wasn't enough because of a dismal offensive performance by the Jets. Jets end this game with negative passing yards, a terrible performance by Justin Fields, wasting a stellar defensive performance. The job of the coaching staff has to be questioned in this one as well. Aaron Glenn, what was he doing before halftime? The Jets allowed the clock to run out instead of going after points. It proved to be costly. There's a reason the team's 0-6. It's because they always find a way to lose, and that's true of this Jets team. For more on the Jets, tune into the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That DJ was jamming in London, but we'll talk about that later. But I was a little bit perplexed by the time management and the field position and game awareness of the first half. I think he was just trying to get to the second half, but it turns out that they lost by 2 points, and those points could have really, really helped them in this game.
Yep. And again, this is just a coach learning. And, I've been pretty shocked, honestly, to see how quickly Jets fans have turned on Aaron Glenn. This is his first season. We're 6 weeks into his first season. I think that every coach at least deserves their first season full of grace. Of like, right. Hey, especially when, they're a first-time coach and trying to figure things out. Like, I get it. It's been disappointing. I think Jets fans thought it was going to be better than this at least. But, Justin Fields, him coming in, that's been an interesting time for the Jets right now. The defense, that has been interesting as well. Now Garrett Wilson's going to miss some time, so I don't think he's getting better from here. But this is the same thing. Like, the Jets weren't expected to be competitive. Maybe Jets fans thought they were going to be competitive this year, but the overall consensus was that the Jets were not going to be competitive. And that, to me, is like, yes, it doesn't make what's happening any less disappointing per se, but I still think that it provides context into this team probably needs a couple more off seasons, much like Tennessee, to round out this roster. Get a receiver in there that's not named Garrett Wilson to play next to Garrett Wilson, because right now Garrett Wilson's a one-man show. Breece Hall, I think he's really talented. I don't think the Jets really believe in him. I think they should use him better, but if he's not the guy you want, go out there and get somebody you do believe in. The O-line, they suffered a tough loss before the start of the season, and that's been unfortunate for them. So, it's disappointing for sure, and I'm sure that Jets fans feel that, but I still want to see how Aaron Glenn does over the next year plus before I make any of those assumptions that I see Jets fans honestly making all the time already.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that you share a building with a team that has kind of won some games that you didn't expect them to win, with a rookie quarterback that was picked 21 picks after you made your draft selection. And it just doesn't help, especially being in that media market. Speaking of media, all you got to do is tap into Locked On NFL each and every day, man, twice a day. Tyler Rowland, who you heard from earlier, comes in like a double shot of espresso and wakes you up early in the morning, and then you can slide right here in the barbershop. We both use the help of local experts as guests, as well as folks, clips from folks around the National Football League that have their finger on the pulse of the team to keep you connected. Man, we don't take your time for granted. Right at about 30 minutes today is what we did here on Locked On NFL. Thank you for making us your first listen. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.